know how important it is to like get these sketches and to keep informed. So hopefully you'll find value in the work that in the information I'm sharing. Sarah, can you see the screen? Okay. Okay. So today, really the focus is, I'm just gonna mute. Okay. The focus today is really just some of the resources we have and the landscape. And the reason I wanted to share this with you all is because it helps you with talking points for families, for students, for your administration, for anyone. They kind of see different value in different talking points. So I wanted to give you kind of a bunch of talking points for you to say, oh, this would actually motivate these different people in different ways. So that is kind of the goal for today. Again, I'm Janine, if you don't know me, not Janine Hendershot, but Janine Hatum, another JH. I lead the high school work at Michigan College Access Network, formerly a high school assistant principal, principal, district leader. So, really passionate about this work in the school setting, which is the work that you all do. So grateful for you all. Could you in the chat just put 0 to 5, like how much do you really know MCAN or MCAN's work? 0 is like no clue. 3 is kind of heard. And then 5 is we are totally involved. I just want to get to know like who kind of has the different, thank you. If I can see the chat, 5, we've got some 3s. Okay. So a variability in terms of your connection to us. So I will do just a little kind of overview. This is basically it in a nutshell. MCAN is a nonprofit statewide. We focus on a few big policy and advocacy pieces, but we also focus on getting the adults who support the students the resources and support they need to do their job better because we know counselors especially wear so many hats. So our job, my job is to really say, what do counselors really need and how can I help? But MCAN is a statewide nonprofit. We get our funding through some of the funding we get is through the government, but we are not a government entity. The biggest things that we really want to do is increase college affordability, build and retain talent in the workforce in Michigan, and remove barriers to completion. That is kind of what we are kind of our North Star. And the big picture is we want more people in Michigan to have a certificate or degree by the year 2030. So you'll see some data to help you understand that better, but that is kind of our big picture goal. So we follow, and you've all probably seen this, we follow this hot jobs report. Really, the data shows that so many of the jobs that are hot, meaning in high demand, require some sort of learning past high school. So when we talk about Michigan College Access Network, we're talking about post-secondary education. Whatever that looks like for a student, we just know that high school is not enough. So here's some data on the hot jobs. We know that 84% of require a bachelor's degree or more, but really most of them just require some sort of learning past high school. And I will give you a link to see where that looks, what that looks like in your actual area, which is pretty interesting. And we know that post-secondary education is a lever, right? It is a lever for a stronger workforce, for a better, for a better economy, and economic mobility, and for people to have a family sustaining wage. So we want people in Michigan to say to stay in Michigan, to thrive in Michigan, and we know that requires more than just a high school diploma. Unemployment rate decreases the more education you have, and the median income earnings weekly increases the more education we have. So that is kind of where our lens is, and that is a data point that you can use for families, that you can use with students as well. Another interesting data point that we always like to share is that over the course of a lifetime, you can earn an individual with a bachelor's degree earns $1.2 million more than a high school graduate with nothing. So that is just focusing on like, what is the data saying? how can we use this to talk to students and talk to families? But I do like to show where we are in terms of our attainment in the nation. This means attainment means that our adults between the ages of 25 to 64, so working age adults, have a certificate or degree. This is the percentage of 25 to 64-year-olds in Michigan and then across the nation. So you can see where Michigan is compared to other Midwestern states, and you can see where Michigan is compared to the rest of the country. And we are hovering, we are at the bottom in terms of Michigan and really close to the bottom in terms of the nation. So we know that this is important for the workforce. We know this is important for Michigan's economy, and we know this is important for a student's life, family's ability to have a family sustaining wage. So also more people that have a degree or certificate, they are stronger and active in democracy. They are healthier people. So we want that for our state, and here's where we are. And that's why this is really so important to all of us. So if you see where we are in terms of the state, you can't see your own faces on here, can you? If I move no, you're good. You see the whole screen? Okay. If you look at the state of the state, I want to focus on these metrics. These metrics are important to MCAN because they are the metrics that show readiness and success in post-secondary. Readiness meaning what makes a student more ready for entry, and then talking about persistence and completion. So if we look at the percent of Michigan residents who meet college readiness benchmarks, we know that that is, SAT is kind of here or there for a lot of people, but this is one thing that shows are kids reading at level or at college material? 28% of our Michigan students are meeting both math and reading benchmarks. 50% FAFSA completion moved up to actually 56.9, 57% for the class of 2025. We think that has a lot to do with the better FAFSA. It was easier at that point last year. Also, the college, Free Community College, has really motivated a lot of folks to fill out that FAFSA. So we are hopefully thinking that that's going to increase this year again. And we know that the students who fill out the FAFSA are way more likely to enter into college because they know how much money they're able to get and they use that money. We had 58.4% of our students enrolling in college, and then we have 64% of those students who actually stay. And this is lagging data because it takes a while for the data to be cleaned and to sent over. So we have 64% persisting, and then we have a 40% 6-year graduation rate. Okay, 40%. So 40% of the kids who actually enroll end up finishing. And then 51%, we saw the attainment. And then when you add like some short-term certificates, it goes up to 54% attainment. But what's really interesting is a lot of us, when we fill out the census, there are questions that they ask, survey questions. MCAN chooses 2 questions that are really important to us. One is the people indicating that college is important, and 81% of the families that fill this out say so. And then the likelihood that their child will obtain a college education, and that was 78%. So that, you know, comes with some interest there. Like, the types of people who fill out the census, maybe not, and do the survey, maybe one type of family. But also that percentage versus the percentages that actually do have some sort of degree is very disparate. There's a big disparity there. So if we know that people think college is important, we know that they want their kid to have, or that there's a likelihood that their kid will have a college degree, but then it doesn't happen. So where are the gaps there? Does anyone have any questions about this data?
Janine, I wanted to ask you, like, that periodic table is a new chart I haven't seen in your, yeah. So, and I know that you've worked in Illinois. You're from Illinois, right? Chicago area and stuff. So, and you have very well connected nationally. So, like the ones that have that higher percentage, what are you seeing that they're doing that we're not? Or might be a loaded question, but just kind of
Yeah,
curious.
I would say, it's interesting. Illinois has the universal FAFSA, so every student has to graduate, has to do the FAFSA. So I was in Chicago Public Schools. We had a universal FAFSA. Every kid had to do it or get a waiver, but that also allows for a lot of money to be granted to kids to go to college. They also have money that is for kids that are not documented. So that is another key part for Illinois' infrastructure. The other thing is that a lot of these states have a higher ed governing body that has to make that has the teeth to say you need to do this and they can hold true to that. We don't in Michigan, and we're one of the only states that does not have a governing body for higher ed. There is no one telling higher ed what needs to be done. So there is no consistency, and I would argue some lack of transparency in some ways, which is what MCAN is, aiming to try to tackle a little bit. Um, but that's what I can say about these. Also it is a nice tie-in between post-secondary and workforce in a lot of these places. So the workforce is giving credit for prior learning. They're also paying for education. So that is sort of one of the pieces here. Um, so that's what I can offer about this one. But I think with our recent, the governor's recent investment in Michigan Achievement and with Community College Guarantee and the Skills Scholarship, I think that a lot of this will be increased. The reconnect is a big part of this too. So you can't talk about this number without talking about those older adult students who go back. And that is what Michigan Reconnect is aiming to do, is really get those older students to reconnect them. They call them a lot of the post-COVID or the COVID classes. They just stopped out. So trying to bring them back and get them support financially to complete their work.
Do
So
you find just because you and I are in some committees together with like dual enrollment, do you find because of the governing bodies for higher ed that dual enrollment has a higher success rate in those states too?
I would say if you want to look at some good dual enrollment, look at Indiana.
Okay.
Indiana in the Midwest has really great dual enrollment detail numbers because they also have Ivy Tech is what it's called. It's like a conglomerate of their colleges all together. So it's working together, whereas ours are so sporadic and
Mhm.
random. So it is a challenge for us to do some common dual enrollment work across the board in Michigan. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. I would also argue too, Michigan is a very, like it has been traditionally long. I grew up here, I went to school here. When we think about Michigan back in the day, it was like automotive, a lot of factory, a lot of jobs that did not require a lot of education. That has then shifted. So a lot of the people in the 25 to 60 to 64-year-old age ranges didn't feel like that was necessary or as much of a value. So I would say that that is Michigan's industry compared to a lot of these other industries, these other places that have different industries. Good question.
Hmm.
So the data here that the state of the state, you can see on what's called our impact map. So I want to give everyone in the chat, I'm going to put it in the chat, a link, and I want you to go and I want you to find your high school. I want you to find either your high school or the high school that you would feed into. And I want you to just check out the data for your own school for a minute, just on your computer on a side. The link is in the chat. And take a minute just to look at your data, and then we can put the state data back up here. Oop. And you can see kind of how you compare. Once you see it, just start, I would say put like a got it in the chat so I know and just take a few minutes to look at it. So what your specific high school will show is the same thing unless, but it won't necessarily, yeah, it will show the same work. So it'll show your FAFSA from last year. It will show your SAT, college enrollment, persistence, and it should give you an idea of kind of where you are in the grand scheme of other schools or the state. Anyone have any kind of thoughts that are coming up? Anything that was like an aha? You can unmute or you can put it in the chat. Thoughts?
It's, it's does it include trade schools or is this just community college and
It is community college. There is a different report that that I can make sure you have that shows kind of like I don't even know if they put trade schools if they are a state approved um accredited institution that will be included. But
Mhm.
most of the trade schools, like we don't necessarily have a big trade school state. Our trades are all often in the community college, which is great because the trade schools often charge students personal business loans. They don't always take the FAFSA and they're not all of them, a lot of them are not accredited. So we have we are kind of nervous about adding that, and the state is as well, because it's hard to watch for that.
Yeah.
Yes, Ford is higher than the state in most areas. You will see a lot of your data. Um, what this does, and I want you to go through, please use that same tab and just Google Michigan FAFSA Tracker. And you should see now your current FAFSA rates for your school. The data has been wonky, so we are updating it this week, but it should be updated up till the 20th or something of January. But if you go to the Michigan FAFSA tracker, you should be able to see your current FAFSA rates as well. And I want you to see if you, when you get that, just tell me you got it. Good. So at the bottom, you should be able to search by school and it should auto-populate. If it does not auto-populate, that is because you have less than 10 students that have done their FAFSA and it will not show that because it's privacy. So once you do reach that 10 threshold, it will start populating. But on that, you can see FAFSA from last year, you can see FAFSA from this year, and then you can see the numbers submitted and completed. So then you can go into your MISSG portal or you can contact your students to see who needs to do what in terms of FAFSA. So that is another resource, and I'm bringing these resources up because here's some things that I would suggest you work through in your own work. One is just knowing your school current reality, like Who are we? Where do we stand? Where do we stand against our like rival school? I always like to do that. And then who are the people potentially that need to see this data besides you? And then for number two on the slide, just talking about like, do I know the interests, passions, and influences of my students? And how do I help motivate, support their journey if I know those things? That could be through surveys, EDP, your one-on-ones, Zello, etc. Naviance. And then three is the hot jobs report is something so interesting. So what it shows you, and I put the link in here for you to check out afterwards. What it shows you is the jobs in like the Macomb area that require less um, education, so just a certificate or associates, and then the ones that are in high demand. So you can do high skill, high demand, find those jobs to see, hey, maybe our kids would really be successful here. And then it goes into bachelor's and post bachelor's, but it is a nice way to see the different variations of job opportunities that are in demand and going to give students a decent wage upon graduating from with their associates or 2 year or 4 year. So that's a really good resource to start having. A lot of people are starting to think about dual enrollment programs or pathways, CTE pathways, aligned to, if you all know CTE, it has to be aligned to a regional hot job. So that is something that is really important to look at too. And then be thinking about who supports us and our students, who are the in-school assets that we can leverage, and who is our go-to for resources. I know that your support comes a lot from the ISD, it comes a lot from your school leaders, but think about taking a moment and just saying, like auditing your current reality. Who supports us? Who supports our students? How can we leverage more of those people? And then who are the assets in school? They could be coaches, they could be advisors, they could be paraprofessionals. Who are the trusted adults that we can leverage to support our work? Because what I came to realize when I walked in my first year in administrative role is that my counselors were doing so much heavy lifting that they weren't able to really go deep and focus on some of the things that they knew were the right things to do. So my job was to say, how can we protect your time as school counselors and leverage other people to support this work so that it becomes the heartbeat of the school and not just the in in Deborah's office, Miss Duffy's office, Miss Kingsley's office. Like it's not just happening in an office, but it's happening school wide. So what I want you to go back and think about is like, what is our school wide approach to college and career readiness and support? And is it just me? And if it's just me, how can it not be just me? So that is where kind of my passion lies, is like this whole school effort to support the work. And questions that you can consider when you're thinking about this is, what is the current reality of our schools' alignment to post-secondary attainment? What more data do we want to look at? What are the resources and assets in our county, in our city that can help us? That goes with a lot of you who have work-based learning. Those are some really key people that you can leverage to support some of this work. Um, and then when you think about any of your curriculum or any of your Zello Naviance work, how are students engaging? And then when are students afforded opportunities for all of this exposure and planning? And is it just for some and not for all? And then always telling your story. So where are the wins that you're seeing in your students, in your post-secondary work that we can leverage across the state to celebrate you, to share your good work? And then a big thing is, who needs to be in this conversation about post-secondary support that is not yet in the conversation? and what could be a solid next step. And I say these questions to say, like, it takes a team, it takes a group to do this work well. And if you don't have a group that's supporting you in this work, who could be that group? And we have given grants in the past few years about creating a post-secondary advisory group to work on how could this look as a school if we did this together. So that is something that we want you to often think about.
Mhm.
And then I want to leave this quote. Like, this quote is something that I think is really important in our personal lives as well as in our professional lives. How we spend our time and how we utilize our money, our resources, shows what we value. So again, in school, how we spend the school day, time during the school day, and how we utilize our budget shows what we as a school community value. So whether intentionally or not intentionally, if there is no time or money allocated to the work of post-secondary planning, it inadvertently says, this isn't important and this doesn't matter to us. And I know that's not often the case, but as a, when you look at your budget, when you look at the time you spend on certain things, think about how that relates to the meaning of school and the priority and the vision that you have for your students and the school at large. So I want you to be thinking about, how does your community value post-secondary prep and planning based on the time and money that you spend on this?
Mhm.
How does it breathe in the community? What's the heartbeat of the school when it comes to this work? So I would love to talk a little bit about that if we could. I'm
Mhm.
going to stop sharing for a minute. I think this is an important kind of conversation to be thinking about, is like, is this the work of one person in your
Mhm.
building? Is it the work of a school? Does anyone have some really great work happening that you want to share that's made your job a lot easier? Or any thoughts?
Buddy, I'm curious about Ford.
Yeah, right. So
Right.
Ford has great data. What about Ford is making that happen? What are some of the systems or infrastructure that kind of live in that culture that allow this work to happen?
Did we lose her?
I don't know.
Maybe. What do you see, Janine? Like, what are some best practices in some of the schools that do show that?
Yeah, I would say post-secondary advisory councils. So like
Mhm.
meeting structures.
Yeah.
If there is a way to have a group of people, in my school it was like two senior teachers, two counselors, and the assistant principal and the dean. And sometimes we brought in students. And we planned, what does this look like freshman year to senior year? Who's in charge of what? Let's co-design. And then let's look at data, and let's look at the senior data of FAFSA completion, college applications, et cetera. And we did that together. That was huge. Um,
It's not
Universal,
just planning like homecoming theme.
no, no.
I'm here. I'm here now. I couldn't. This is Betty Ann. Can you guys hear me
Yeah,
on
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
24?
Yeah.
So I'm like on my phone. I couldn't figure out how to unmute it. And I don't know if
You're
you can see
good.
my face or not. Sorry. I think that we could do so much better. I'll be quite honest. But in the last few years, we've really focused on getting more information out about FAFSA, and we're just blasting out a ton into senior classrooms. We do a senior survey, so we're calling kids out. And also from the district level, they hired someone. Um, they've from the district level, they have now people who will come in and do FAFSA completion. So meet with kids one on one. So we'll send out sign up geniuses as who needs help to get FAFSA done. They've also hired two more people in our building because we just got the grant money that we have to have 100% completion for this school year. So I just feel like we're getting out there more and we're making it a really big priority. And because of the Michigan Community College Guarantee, we just see such a value in it. And I don't think students really understand that they can go to college for free if they complete, and all you have to do is complete the FAFSA. Um, so I don't know. I just feel like we're doing more than we have in the past.
No, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. And I do think that when you start bringing it to the forefront of the conversation, it does show that it is important and it becomes the conversation. And then, when I moved back to Michigan from Chicago, I was shocked that FAFSA wasn't a mandate. I just thought it was like an actual like a whole nation thing. So when I came in, I was like, what do you mean we have 50% at the statewide level for FAFSA completion? In Chicago, we had 94%. Like, how is that possible? So I do think that the mandatory FAFSA makes a difference. It becomes not a conversation about why the FAFSA, but a conversation about when the FAFSA, like when are we going to do it? Let's do it. And then the conversation happens where they see the money and they're like, oh, I actually get money. So I think that that is important. I do think that you mentioned something about like putting money towards people. I think that is important. Whether that's a post-secondary coach, whether that's another counselor, whatever that looks like, I think that's important. One thing that was really fun that we did was senior supporters, where we had every senior identify a trusted adult in the building, and they were the ones that almost like were in charge of their senior stuff. And we just made sure they knew what the senior stuff was. And then it became sort of like a fun, like my kids are all good. We're all good. We got the plan. And then the teachers loved it. They wanted to know where their kids were planning. They wanted to be a part of it. So the senior supporters was really fun and also just healthy, I think, for a school community. Um,
And we have four, Utica is the second largest district in Michigan. So we have quite a big district, and each of the high schools is very different. And there's one high school that is similar in location to Henry Ford. It's Stevenson High School. And they have about they have about 8% higher completion rate than we do right now. And I talked to someone over there like this past week. And I said, why do you guys have a higher completion rate than us? And I think it's specifically because of this senior teacher that is in that building that basically ensures that every senior, because she teaches a speech class and another class with all seniors, that she makes sure that every senior in her class has the FAFSA completed. And and it's a really big push for those senior English teachers to help too, to be like another check with those kids. So I feel like I'm going to have to go back to my building and be like, okay, this is what we got to do, and try to help maybe get our senior English teachers like to buy in, like we need your help. Counselors need your help.
yes, 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 and yes. And that is like this idea of senior teachers on this planning team to really think about how do we divide and conquer because the senior teachers see them every day and you do not. So that is awesome. I would also say that Utica has the highest, if not the highest, the second highest use of Zello across the entire state of Michigan. So kudos to Utica for like getting that to be a priority, whether or not it's like compliance driven versus like actually used. Hey, I don't know, but like you've started, you've used it's like that. So there's a lot of like things that are surfacing that make it seem like, oh, okay, that could be a reason. But yes, Utica has the strongest Zello integration. They have universal FAFSA now. The senior teachers are really engaged. They have staffing from the district level. So that is um, great. And I'm sure other people have some really great things to share too. Um, if anyone wants to share, I know some people really incorporate their athletic directors and coaches as part of the conversation. Um, that has worked as well. So some good ideas there. I would say, FAFSA is not going to be important if they don't understand and don't have like ideas about their pathway. There's a school district that has now created senior defense where seniors have to stand in front of a panel of community members and their parents are welcome to come and like basically defend their future plans and talk about how they've grown as a human and as a student, and then not necessarily defend, but like share their senior plans. So every senior has to have a viable plan, and that is like one step, right? So that's pretty cool. And that's outside of Macomb area, but still. Anything else? Okay. The other thing I just want to share with you, some of you know this, some of you don't. We do have a free at no cost college and career planning course. This is meant to be an exploratory, like, who am I? What's my dream? How do I get there? How do I plan for that? It is all the workbooks are available. It is all on Google Classroom. Teachers can just use the slides. So if you are interested in thinking about this in terms of a course for credit, we would hope, and a senior teacher, a seminar class, etc. This is available for next year, again at no cost to you, and there are about 8,000 students statewide using this currently. It does satisfy the financial literacy credit as well, so pretty cool. We also have this affordability toolkit just for you all to say like, oh, shoot, I need some slides for family night. The senior parents are coming, junior parents are coming. This is of course, free, and it just has links to everything you can download and copy and make changes to certain things. It also has scholarships that we upload. So if you have it's a document you can share with your students, you could put in your Google Classroom or put in your office, your email link, and it's open for kids to just look at so that they can see what scholarships are available. In order for We share all this on our listserv. If you're not getting emails from me on your listserv to keep you updated on all these resources, please just email me. I will add you to that. And then coming up, Spring App Week is coming up March 9th to the 13th. That is, again, many of the Michigan colleges are saying, hey, if you haven't decided where you're going or you need to reapply somewhere else, we will waive the application fees, etc. And that is coming out for the week of March 9th. So I would say if you're not on my listserv that you get the emails from me, please email me to make sure you get all these, because it is hopefully really helpful for folks. And then I'm going to stop my share. And I just want to say, you will have these slides, you will have all the links. Sarah can get it out to you. And we also do, of course, if you need sketches, like we do all the college and career sketches, we do a bunch of them. We have over, I would say, 200 that we offer every year, for you, all free. So if you can't attend live, they're all recorded on our website and you can rewatch them, fill out a quick survey, a quiz, and get a sketch. So we want to make sure you're equipped as Sarah is, and that's why these spotlights are so important too.
Two final questions for me, when I can hold you down, Janine, and get you, I got. So
Yeah.
talked about tip funds,
Yeah.
like where with all that.
Okay, so tip is when you are on the MISSG counselor portal, you should be able to see every single student who is tip eligible and eligible for Michigan Achievement Scholarship, which is super helpful when you're trying to take kids and do some good advising with them. A lot of, like the packaging order, I don't necessarily, I'm not like great at saying that. I can share the document with you, but I know that there is, with Michigan Achievement, there's some questions on how does tip work and how much money do they get. But again, that's the packing order, which I will share a link to. They are opening tip for skills scholarships That is opening in July, so I will also add that to a conversation. You can get the link and look at it. So I am not like a super well versed on tip. Do
It
you have
seemed
a
to have gotten real quiet because of Michigan Achievement.
Yeah, because it's like, what does tip do that Michigan Achievement
Right.
do? Michigan Achievement will get some of the extra costs that tip does not get.
Mhm.
Um, I do think part of our advocacy this year at Advocacy Day is to talk about mandatory fees being included in tip, with tip. So that is something that we're pushing, um, that they mandatory fees are all part of that, like tuition.
And then I guess just not to make your stomach flip, but what are some of the legislative things going on that we should just sort of be aware of? Or I know that mandatory FAFSA did not pass, but there was some talk about it being reintroduced. So just any hot
Yeah,
topics.
so hot topics. Mandatory FAFSA didn't go anywhere because the deadline passed and like they switched the year. So that kind of just fell flat due to
Mhm.
timing. I know there's still some major interest in it. The people who have the universal FAFSA dollars, like Utica, for example, got a really large amount of money to say, hey, if you give us this money, we can show you that FAFSA numbers will improve, therefore college enrollment and attainment will improve. Now, if Utica, and I'm using Utica just in this context, doesn't spend the money or doesn't see any growth in their FAFSA or the attainment doesn't change, then we might be like, that didn't prove anything. It's almost like this is a pilot for universal FAFSA.
Mhm.
So, how did it work? What are we learning from the sites that have universal FAFSA? So if it does become a graduation requirement, how much money do people need? What might they need to make it happen, etc. So that's universal FAFSA. There is a lot of talk currently about funding for dual enrollment. So as you might not know or know, a lot of the money that to pay for dual enrollment for students to take dual enrollment, it comes out of your K-12 budget, which is not really incentivizing a lot of superintendents and principals to allow kids to take, even though it's the right to take dual enrollment. So one of the pushes is to reallocate funds to K-12 so that kids can take dual enrollment and high schools won't be penalized financially. That is a big talk right now. Um, Another big talk is streamlining financial award letters from colleges. Don't even get me started on this. If you know, you know, you all know, I know you know that every letter is different. The timeline is different. Kids get a letter from Michigan State that's different from Wayne State, that's different from, and nobody can read them. And it's so confusing and nobody knows what the award letters mean. So if we could have a unified award letter system in Michigan. Now, again, that is a challenge because we don't have a governing body for colleges.
Mhm.
So, another thing that we're seeing be is not funding colleges, but using funding as like um, if you do good on stuff. I'm blanking on the word, not incentivizing, but sort of incentivizing so that colleges are held accountable in certain ways. Um,
Mhm.
so funding them based on accountability measures, we are trying to push some of that. Not sure how that will go, probably upset the colleges, but hey, when we're giving a bunch of students to colleges to graduate them and they're not graduating or they're getting out with a lot of debt, then we need to do something about that. So
Yeah.
that is one thing that we are focusing on. Another thing is moving the Reconnect 25 right now, 25 and above, 25-year-olds and above can get um, free community college. They reduced it to the age of 21 and up. Um, for a short term, they want to keep it 21 and above so that if kids want to go back to school when they're 21, it will be free community college for them. Those are the top of mind thoughts that I have about budget. If anyone's coming to our advocacy day, I think Sarah, you'll
Yep.
be able to hear more of this. And then once I get the actual policy and advocacy kind of document that outlines what MCAN's thinking in terms of college attainment, then I will definitely send it to you and you can send it to these folks.
Mhm.
I always send it in the chat, in the listserv as well, so that they can feel abreast to all of the things that we're trying to accomplish.
Well, I am very grateful. I didn't realize it was your day off. I never would have texted you.
No, it's totally fine. It is
But
fine.
I appreciate it. So anyone else for the good of the whole, you have any specific questions you want to ask Janine or emails there, make sure that you guys get on their website. They do have just the resources. I don't know who builds them at MCAN, but they're pretty amazing. Like the trackers and always there's no reason why we can't give out great publications to our families and communities because MCAN even has things where we can copy and paste templates and it's just really good stuff. So thank you so much, Janine, for all the work that you do to support our students. And I know that you're a big advocate for school counselors and the work that they do. So
Yes, no
we'll
problem.
get the
Thank you all. And Sarah,
yeah.
if anyone and all of you, if anyone has any feedback of what's missing or what are we
Mhm.
like we need to do better, or what do you think that you could use that we haven't mentioned, then
Mhm.
definitely please reach out. Or I'm always looking for feedback too.
Yeah. Maybe give cars away, when they fill out their
Yes.
so that we're giving to the counselor if all their kids fill it out. So very
Uh,
cool. Well, thank you again, Janine, for your partnership and for stepping in for Madonna today. And thank you everyone that joined. I know a lot of you this is your day off as well, but it's important to I try to find a sweet spot for everybody. So I appreciate all that. I'm going to email the PowerPoint out and Janine's email. If you haven't taken advantage of that curriculum that she talks about, any of the resources, you guys should be all over those. They're pretty awesome. So this video will be posted on our website as well down the road in case anyone wants to reference any of the great stuff that she shared today. So your password for today is college access for your sketch application. So college access, make sure you put that in there and just watch your email from me. We're still trying to book that last session so that I can give you guys as many opportunities to get your college credits. And then I'll put the all call out for you to send your sketch applications to me through email. Please don't send them just yet because you would be missing out on something potentially, and it's just not time. So I need you to just hold off on that passport. So, all right, without further ado, Janine, thank you. You guys
thank
have a
you.
great midwinter break. Those of you that are on it, if not, I'll talk to you all soon.